Hey everyone, I'm Michael Scanlon. We are here with the Connecticut Youth Advisory Board. I'm here with Jake and Emily, and we are really excited to talk to you about different ways to support teachers and professionals. A lot of the work of our Youth Advisory Board is not only supporting young adults and moving them forward, but a lot of our work too is really helping professionals and teachers and families really understand how to better work with young adults in their life and how to be a better ally to young adults and to really just create a sense of community and really a sense of partnership. So I'm really excited to have Jake and Emily here. So our session today is going to be just a really casual conversation, really on ways to support teachers. I think that's been a focus for us. You may have seen our upcoming newsletter on bullying. And so kind of in really following this conversation, I kind of wanted to throw it out to you and Emily and really and all of that. So Emily, I first want to talk to you on what would you want teachers to know?
In general, I would want them to know that despite what despite what the IEP may indicate, your student, and whether it's special ed or any other general class, is that your student is still a student. They're not just a sped student. And also, like, you can give a student the same assignments most of the time, and you can just treat them like you would any other student. I remember this was due to my youth, but I remember I was one of those kids that like never got detention in middle school, and I always kind of wanted it. And I just wanted to, because the main thing of what we want is we want to be treated like everybody else. Like, we want to be treated and we want to do the same work and get the same grades as everybody else. Like, we want to be like everybody else, and we just want to just be a student and excel the same way that everybody else would. And also that our IEPs are something that we need to help us excel, to be able to do that.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. I think you mentioned a lot of great points. And I think the few that stick out to me, and we'll, of course, talk more about this, is number one, you want to be treated like everyone else. But at the same time, we're recognizing with our IEPs and the supports we would like, it's having that choice and having that support in place. So it's both the respect, but also the support. And so I think that's a really important distinction you made there, Emily. Thank you. So, Jake, I want to turn it to you now. What would you want teachers to know?
Well, in class, we are taught that if you have a question about anything, you should ask it. The same goes for the teachers. You need to know your students, discover their interests, hobbies, and what they are passionate about. While doing this, you will begin to build a trust-filled and respect-filled relationship.
I really appreciate that, Jake. And I think, again, it's so insightful because, what you talked about is getting to know your students, right? So, I haven't been a teacher, obviously, but I can only imagine teachers have a classroom full of students and there's a lot on their plate. And I'm like, my dad's a teacher, so I know firsthand all that can go into being a great teacher. And so I really appreciate how you mentioned almost like getting back to basics just on that personal level. And I think that's a really important thing to bring up, is that, you know, again, I'm only imagining, but that teachers just have so many assessments and homework and lesson plans, and that recognizing everyone as human and what are their strengths, what are their interests, what do they like, how's their life going. And I think we've had many conversations as a youth advisory board on this and what makes a difference. So I really appreciate you sharing that, Jake. Emily, so back to you. Do you have any great experiences with teachers that you remember?
Yeah, I do actually. And one of what I have special ed experiences and I have gen ed experiences. I could combine the two or just talk about either or. I'm open to either. One special ed experience, like all of my middle school special ed teachers were good, and like, you know, most of the time my high school special ed teacher was good, but one thing that sticks out is I had him for civics and I had him for history in 11th grade. And he was, you know, your typical mid-30s guy, you know, and he was a very good teacher, but what I liked about him was he explained the material to us and things like, and like he let us play Jeopardy when like before a quiz and stuff like that. But what I liked was he would always like out of class, he would like, you know, joke with me about, you know, just, you know, stupid stuff. Like if he happened to have known like whatever boy I liked, he would mess with me about that. And I liked that because he was acknowledging that I was a teenager. I wasn't just a student in his class, and like his class wasn't exactly the type of class that I needed like extra help with. So like I just needed to go out of his room for tests and things like that. And I think generally my experience, teachers are very good about going by the IEP, which is good because like just as a sidebar, I've seen things where people like online where people are complaining that like the teachers aren't following their kids' IEP, and I just think that's like shocking because I've never had that experience before.
No, thank you for sharing that, Emily. And I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have more you wanted to share?
No.
And I think, you know, like Jake was saying, I think that you really mentioned again a great story that what you remember from a while back is a teacher who was fun, got to know you, really cared about your personal life. And I think you know, not being a teacher, I don't know what the mindset is. I can imagine maybe some teachers might feel like, oh, to remain professional, I have to have that boundary or that separation from my students. And I can't make that answer for every teacher, but I think it sounds like you had a teacher who really was professional, but was someone you trusted and was someone who you really looked up to and could turn to if you needed anything.
Yeah, I think the majority of my teachers I felt that way towards, and like there's only one teacher that I've spoken about previously that I did not like at all in comparison to the rest of my teachers, because I feel like the rest of my teachers, like even my study hall teacher guys, was like really good. So I think it all depends, like if you're a regular teacher and you're just teaching like you have to be good at what you teach, and you have to have a good rapport with young people. But it's also good. It's also like you have to have something extra if you're being a sped teacher. Like you can't just be very horrible to like your students, because if you are, they're gonna walk away from high school with trauma like I did.
Mm.
Um
A
so
lot of really important things you're sharing, Emily. Thank you so much. I appreciate your insight as always. Jake, do you have any great experiences with teachers that you remember?
Yes, I do. My transition program teacher who gave me the independence and advice and supported me in my goals that I defined. He did not try to steamroll me into doing what he thought I should do, but rather let me find my own way, even if it took me a bit longer to get there.
Thank you for sharing that, Jake. I think, again, I'm hearing a lot of common themes, right? I'm hearing respect, I'm hearing choice, I'm hearing dignity. All these great experiences have those common themes, right? Jake and Emily, where your
yeah,
experience, Jake, was a teacher who let you, co-created a plan that worked for you and helped to support you and follow through. And it sounds it's like the best possible outcome. And I'm really glad you had that great experience. So I think, when thinking about the bigger conversation here, it's what would it take for teachers and school systems to allow experiences like Jake and Emily have had, right? So giving teachers the time, the freedom, the support they may need, right? Because I think the bigger picture too is we're talking about what students need, but on the same token, it's what do teachers need? And so I really look forward to having more conversations with teachers and hearing from their experience and what we can do to really not necessarily that students have to help teachers, but in the sense of how to, help the system help teachers, which of course will help students.
right.
And so this one's an interesting question, but I kind of wanted to run it by you both. Emily, can you talk about maybe just 3 things to avoid doing as a teacher?
3 things to avoid doing as a teacher is, one that I can think of is like, don't something that I one thing I can think of is like, let your student take their time. Like, in as you guys know, I've mentioned it before, I had a really like hard time with chemistry. So like my special ed teacher knew that. So she offered that I would go to class like everybody else, but during the period where I was supposed to be in her room, I would go back to my teacher and he would explain chemistry in plain language. And I am very thankful every day that like he did that, because like he was willing to do that, because like I felt very like as a sophomore, I like just took chemistry because my biology teacher said to. So I was going in blind and I didn't really understand. Like I was lost the majority of the class. So when he finally like helped me get up to speed, I was very grateful. And I like just want to know, like really reiterate that one thing that teachers can do is just let your students take their time and like like let them mess up and let them like fix their mistakes and things like that.
I really appreciate you saying that, Emily, because I know that that it's giving students what they need. And there's a really great quote. One of my favorite teachers when I was in ninth grade, she said, fairness isn't giving everyone the same. Fairness is giving everyone what they need. So like right there, you kind of like gave a great example where
Yeah.
what you needed was more time, and that could look different for every student. So it's like, and how do you make that happen consistently? So I really appreciate you saying that. Do you have any like one or two other thoughts on things teachers could avoid doing, or do you want me to turn to Jake and then?
Yeah, and I have a couple. Sorry, Jake. Another
No
couple.
worries.
Okay. Another thing that I can think of is like, don't try to like baby them too much. Like, don't think that just because they're in a wheelchair that they, aren't the kind of student that would do things they weren't supposed to. Like, not very often, but I think teachers used to catch me like speeding in the hallway, and like they would like, they would say something, but it was more like they would say it just because they had to, but like they were cool with it and they just let me go. And like I think it's really great to just like let them like have their independence and let them like, what I'm trying to say is basically something that they shouldn't do is like, baby their students. They shouldn't do that. Like, but because a lot of like when I would go to do something in class, like teachers would be surprised and I'm like, what? Like, I'm just doing what I would do normally. And that's what I don't think a lot of because for me, I was like one of the few students with disabilities that my general ed teachers taught. So they were very surprised every time I did something. It's like, yes, I'm the one that earned these grades because I don't like have that much of a social life. So I really did pour myself into my grades. So
Yeah, I think that's really great you brought that up. I think that's like a foundational thing, right? Is having that perspective that your students are capable no matter what, what walk of life
exactly.
or experiences they have. And I think we've talked about that in pretty much every presentation we've ever done, right? And I think, but it's worth repeating just because we've all seen where people can fall in that trap of maybe if it's in our documentation or any preconceived notions someone might have, and it's always keeping in mind assume capability, assume we can do everything, and then if we need support we can work on that together. So I think that's really important, Emily.
Yeah.
Jake, I want to turn it to you now. Do you have a few things you think teachers should avoid doing?
Yes, I do, Michael. Thank you. And don't always assume that you know what is best for your students. You need to connect with them to understand what they feel is best and or important to them. And don't define your student by their disability. Everyone is an individual and deserves to be treated that way. And don't stifle their goals. Work with them to create incremental goals that will help them
I love everything you share, Jake. I think, from the last thing, which is creating effective individual goals, it's not creating like a standard goal for everyone. It's really being mindful of what would, like you said, the ultimate goal is, graduation, independence, living your best life. So I think that's really helpful to share. I think what you shared in the beginning, which is, going back to that trust, and you said teachers not assuming they know best. And I think that goes back to what you both shared, is making that personal connection. Because I think a bigger conversation is students might not always feel safe in a school or in a classroom to share what's really going on. So by making those personal connections, students are going to really feel safer. Because I remember there was classrooms I didn't really feel emotionally safe in. So like if a teacher had asked me what's going on, I'm not going to tell you. But if I was in around a really nice teacher that I trusted, I'd be way more open to share that. So again, it's almost like when you put in the time to invest in your students and make those personal connections, it's going to come back to you tenfold, right? So I really appreciate that, Jake.
Absolutely.
And kind of wrapping up, we're at our last question here. Is there anything else you want teachers to know? A few things you'd like teachers to do? We talked about a lot of great things already, but this is your time to share your expertise, Emily and Jake.
Anything that we would like them to know, just like I remember at like one of the like school dances or whatever, they had to have like a special ed like teacher be there for like, the disabled kids. And it's like, I love how like teachers are so shocked that like the disabled kids actually go to homecoming and stuff like that. Like I didn't really have like the best time at homecoming because like, I couldn't really dance with my friends and like, boys didn't like me or any of that stuff. But like just the notion that people were so shocked that like, I was there was like mind blowing. I mean, like they knew I was going, but they made such a big deal out of it once I was there. And I was like, really? Like just don't make, like basically what I'm saying is don't make a spectacle out of just because a disabled student wants to do normal things. Just like let them do normal things with appropriate supports. In with it in the LRE, because school is like a regular classroom and like stuff like that is, or it was the LRE for me. So, and also like just follow the IEP. And if you, I mean, I don't know. In my experience, teachers did not do this to my knowledge. But if you have a question regarding your SPED student that's in your gen ed class, consult the special ed teacher because they know your student more than you do necessarily, because they like, even though I was only with my SPED teacher for a period, I still had her for homeroom. And like she knew like for my IEP, like, and just by looking at me like what my needs were. So like if you have a question regarding like, I don't know, one of mine growing up was accommodations, was I needed everything enlarged. So like they kind of like, they kind of knew that I had to have enlarged work, and like they were okay with my para getting like stuff enlarged at the Xerox machine. So like just like consult with the IEP, consult with the SPED teacher if you need to.
I think you brought up a lot of great points, Emily. It's collaborating with other professionals. I think we're all, and I'm not blaming anyone. We're all guilty. We all have our daily lives. Things can fall under the radar. But I think it goes back to what you said earlier, Jake, is not having an ego, not being like, I know best, so do what I say, or else, right? But it's being open to knowledge and input from others, and creating that team and community setting as schools should be. So I really appreciate you saying that. And I think I want to touch on for a second what you shared earlier, Emily, about you going to your dance, because I don't want to, we'll talk about it, but I think what I heard from you is feeling really babied or feeling like they were condescending. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. I mean, like they like I didn't realize it at the time, but as an adult, I'm like, wait a minute. They were like way too excited to the fact that I was there, because to any others, like, and other special ed kids were there too. And it was like, it is not that exciting that I spent $10 to hang out in the gym. Like, it's not that exciting. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, in
totally get
retrospect,
it. I think what I'm sensing, and tell me if I'm wrong, Emily, is, I think when we talk about, like, this is a key learning moment. This is like exactly why we're doing this video, is helpful versus not helpful. So what was not helpful is making a big parade out of it, because that's maybe telling you, Emily, like, I'm different, or what's wrong with me to make this big fuss. So am I getting that right? Whereas something helpful might be, hey, Emily, we're so glad you're here. Thanks for coming. Oh, we're so excited. Where it's the, it's both acknowledging you, but it's the way you're doing it, because I think so much will come from good intent, but how are students and young adults taking it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's another thing is also like, this isn't more of a teacher moment, but it could be like a notable thing for paraeducators to learn, if any of them are watching, is to, on the day of senior day, do not let your student that you barely let out of your sight anyway out into the vast world of Holiday Hill, where they don't know where any of their friends are and stuff like that. Like, don't say, okay, now you can go off by yourself, because I didn't want to do that at the time, because I didn't know where my friends were. There were a whole bunch of schools, and it's like, just, if there is like a senior day, just, talk about that with the student beforehand. Don't tell them the day of that they can just do that if you don't normally let them be independent anyway.
So this is a big one, Emily, and I'm glad every single thing you're bringing up is relevant, because, as always, because I think in preparing students and young adults, I think that there's a way to effectively go about it. And the way I always like to share, and I hope this makes sense, is I think about working with young adults and students like planning a party. Okay, so like, say you're a professional. Would you plan a party at your house and just like, say you want it at like Friday night at 6 o'clock, right? So would you tell all your friends you want to invite at like 5:30? Oh, can't wait to see you, like, be here. You didn't tell us a time ahead of time. You didn't tell us what you're having. You didn't tell us where. You didn't say anything. And so, like, complete shock. And of course there's going to be chaos, because now you had this whole thing planned in your head, and like have talked about it with other people, but you've not let the attendees know anything. And I feel like it's the same thing that happens time and time again. So many things are planned without us and about us, but we're never
not like with us. And I think that's a big thing. Like, I think professionals need to, like, okay, not that this is related, so bear with me. A lot of I follow a lot of special ed teachers on TikTok, and a lot of them like mock what administration like that they know their students way more than like admin does. So I think a lot of like, you know, special ed teachers now realize the kinks, and our videos can only help them improve them more than they already are.
I totally agree,
I
Emily.
can't speak for Connecticut because I don't think I follow any special ed teachers from Connecticut on there, but at least, you know, Connecticut special ed teachers can get a flavor of what can be changed.
Absolutely. So Jake, closing us out, our last question turning to you. What are your thoughts on a few things teachers can do? Because I saw you smiling really big when we were talking about the party planning and being involved. So what are your thoughts, Jake?
Well, for me, it's really important to value each student as an independent person and do not assume you know everything based on them, based on what you know about their disability.
I really appreciate that, Jake. And I think, you know, you always have a way of grounding everything in that human element and reminding us we're all human, we're all capable, and really starting from there. So Emily and Jake, I really want to thank you both for talking about this. This by no means is our last conversation. We're going to do a lot more you know, on supporting teachers. So this is just really what I think of as one of the many first steps in connecting with teachers, and how can we work together to help students, help professionals, help the school system. So I really appreciate your time and your stories and your expertise. You're awesome. I appreciate you, and I know our viewers will appreciate you. So again, this is Michael, Emily, and Jake at CPAC with our Youth Advisory Board signing off. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Thank you all.